If you are over 60 years old and you have been eating blueberries, thinking you are doing something wonderful for your joints, I need you to stop everything you are doing and pay very close attention to what I am about to tell you. Because there is a very good chance that the way you have been consuming these little purple fruits is actually making your joint pain worse, not better. And I am not exaggerating when I say that what you are about to learn could completely change the way you approach your joint health from this day forward. I have seen it happen so many times in my practice that it breaks my heart. Good people, people just like you, who are trying so hard to do the right thing for their bodies, who have heard all about the amazing benefits of blueberries, and who are faithfully eating them day after day, wondering why their knees still ache when they climb the stairs, why their hips still throb when they try to get out of bed in the morning, why their fingers still feel stiff and swollen when they wake up. Hello, I am Dr. Sophia Reynolds, and I am a rheumatologist with over 25 years of clinical experience treating patients with arthritis, joint inflammation, and chronic pain conditions. Throughout my career, I have treated thousands of patients who came to me frustrated, confused, and often in tears because they felt like they were doing everything right but still suffering. And what I discovered is that for many of them, the problem was not what they were eating, but how they were eating it. Blueberries are genuinely one of nature's most powerful medicines for joint health. The science is absolutely clear on this. They are packed with compounds called anthocyanins, which are the pigments that give them that beautiful deep blue color, and these anthocyanins have remarkable anti-inflammatory properties that can help reduce joint pain, decrease swelling, and even slow down the progression of arthritis. But here is what nobody tells you. If you make certain mistakes when consuming blueberries, you can actually cancel out these benefits entirely, and in some cases, you can create additional inflammation that makes your joints feel even worse than before. Before we go any further, if you have not yet subscribed to this channel, I really encourage you to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another health tip designed specifically for you. And if you find this information helpful, please leave your suggestions and questions in the comments below. I read every single one, and your feedback helps me create more videos to help more people just like you. Now let me tell you about the first critical mistake that I see people making all the time, and this one might surprise you because it seems so innocent. The first mistake is eating blueberries on a completely empty stomach first thing in the morning. I know. You have probably heard that eating fruit on an empty stomach is the healthiest way to consume it, and for many fruits, that advice is perfectly fine. But blueberries are different, and here is why. Blueberries contain organic acids, including citric acid, malic acid, and quinic acid. When these acids hit an empty stomach, they can trigger an increase in stomach acid production. For some people, especially those over 60 whose digestive systems are already more sensitive, this can lead to what we call acid reflux or gastroesophageal issues. Now you might be wondering what stomach acid has to do with your aching joints. The connection is inflammation. When your digestive system is irritated, it triggers a systemic inflammatory response throughout your entire body. Your immune system releases inflammatory chemicals called cytokines, and these cytokines do not just stay in your stomach. They travel through your bloodstream and end up in your joints, where they cause additional swelling, stiffness, and pain. I had a patient named Mrs. Dorothy Campbell, a 72-year-old retired librarian from Portland, Oregon. Dorothy had spent 40 years surrounded by books, helping generations of children discover the joy of reading at her local public library. After retirement, she had looked forward to finally having time to read all the novels she had recommended to others, but never had a chance to enjoy herself. But rheumatoid arthritis in her hands had stolen that dream from her. The simple act of holding a book open had become an exercise in pain management. She came to me absolutely convinced that blueberries were making her arthritis worse. She said, "Dr. Reynolds, I do not understand it. Everyone says blueberries are supposed to help with inflammation, but ever since I started eating them every morning, my hands have been so swollen I can barely turn the pages of a book anymore. My daughter bought me a reading stand for Christmas because I cannot even hold paperbacks now." This is not how I imagined spending my golden years. When I asked her about her routine, she told me she had been eating a large bowl of fresh blueberries every single morning before breakfast, on a completely empty stomach, because she thought that would maximize the absorption of all those healthy antioxidants. She woke up every day at 6 in the morning, immediately went to the kitchen, and ate her blueberries before doing anything else. She had been following this routine religiously for nearly 4 months. We made one simple change. Instead of eating her blueberries first thing in the morning on an empty stomach, I asked her to eat them about 30 minutes after having a small breakfast, perhaps after some oatmeal or a piece of whole grain toast. I explained that the digestive inflammatory response she was triggering was likely compounding her existing joint inflammation rather than helping it. Within 3 weeks, she called me practically in tears of joy. She said her hand swelling had decreased dramatically, her morning stiffness was much better, and she could finally enjoy her beloved books again without her fingers aching. She told me she had picked up a novel the previous weekend and read for 3 hours straight without needing to stop because of pain. Same blueberries, same amount, completely different result just by changing when she ate them. Her husband told me later that he had not seen her that happy since before her diagnosis. The optimal approach is to consume your blueberries after you have eaten something that provides a protective buffer in your stomach. A small meal containing some healthy fats or proteins is ideal because it slows down the release of those organic acids and prevents that sudden spike in stomach acid production. The second mistake is one that I see constantly, and it involves how people store their blueberries. So many of my patients buy fresh blueberries with the best intentions, and then they leave them sitting in the refrigerator for a week or more before finally eating them. By that time, those blueberries have lost a significant portion of their anti-inflammatory power. You see, anthocyanins, those incredible compounds that make blueberries so beneficial for your joints, are extremely sensitive to time, light, and temperature fluctuations. Research has shown that fresh blueberries can lose up to 40% of their anthocyanin content within just 7 days of being stored in a typical home refrigerator. The longer they sit, the more of those precious anti-inflammatory compounds degrade, and what you end up eating is essentially a much weaker version of what you thought you were getting. I remember a patient of mine, Mr. Harold Washington, an 81-year-old former postal worker from Chicago, Illinois. Harold had walked thousands of miles during his 35 years delivering mail through the neighborhoods of the South Side, and those years of pounding the pavement had taken their toll on his knees. He was one of the most dedicated patients I have ever had when it came to following nutritional advice. Every single week, he would take the bus to his local grocery store and buy 2 large containers of fresh organic blueberries. He thought he was being economical and smart by buying in bulk. Harold lived alone since his wife passed away 3 years earlier, and he took his health seriously because he had promised her he would take care of himself. He was meticulous about his blueberry consumption, eating exactly 1 cup every morning with his breakfast. But what he did not realize was that by the time he got to the second container, those berries had been sitting in his refrigerator for 8 or 9 days. He was essentially eating fruit that had lost much of its therapeutic value. The berries still tasted fine, they still looked acceptable, but the invisible damage to their anthocyanin content had already occurred. When I explained this to him, he was initially discouraged. He felt like he had been cheating himself out of benefits he thought he was getting. He lived alone and could not possibly eat 2 containers of fresh blueberries in just a few days. The waste would be terrible, and on his pension, every dollar mattered. That is when I introduced him to a solution that changed everything: frozen blueberries. Many people assume that frozen fruits are somehow inferior to fresh ones. But when it comes to blueberries, the opposite is often true. Blueberries that are frozen immediately after harvest actually retain more of their anthocyanins than fresh berries that have been transported, stored, and displayed in grocery stores for days before you even buy them. The flash freezing process essentially locks in those beneficial compounds at their peak potency. Studies have shown that frozen blueberries can maintain up to 90% of their anthocyanin content for 6 months or more when stored properly. Mr. Washington made the switch to frozen blueberries, and within a few months, he reported that his knee pain, which had been his main complaint, had improved more than it ever had when he was eating the fresh berries that had been sitting in his refrigerator. The key is to let frozen blueberries thaw naturally in the refrigerator overnight rather than microwaving them, because microwaving can also damage those delicate anthocyanins. If you are still watching and finding this information valuable, please take a moment to comment below with the number 1. This lets me know you are following along and helps the channel reach more people who could benefit from this knowledge. The third mistake is something that almost everyone does without even thinking about it, and it involves combining blueberries with dairy products. How many times have you mixed blueberries into your yogurt, poured milk over your blueberry cereal, or blended blueberries into a milkshake? These combinations seem perfectly healthy and delicious, but there is a hidden problem that most people do not know about. Dairy products contain proteins called caseins, and these caseins have a strong affinity for binding with the anthocyanins in blueberries. When casein molecules attach to anthocyanins, they form complexes that your body cannot absorb properly. Research has demonstrated that consuming blueberries with dairy can reduce the bioavailability of anthocyanins by up to 50% in some cases. That means half of those incredible anti-inflammatory compounds are passing right through your system without ever reaching your joints where they could do their healing work. Mrs. Elizabeth Martinez, a 68-year-old retired nurse from San Antonio, Texas, came to see me after years of dealing with osteoarthritis in both knees. Elizabeth had worked in the orthopedic ward of her hospital for over 30 years. And the irony of developing the same condition she had helped so many patients manage was not lost on her. She had watched countless patients struggle with joint pain, and she had always promised herself she would do everything in her power to prevent it when it was her turn. She told me she had been religiously eating blueberries every single day for over 2 years, because she had read about their benefits for joint health. Every morning without fail, she would make herself what she called a super healthy smoothie, with a full cup of blueberries, a generous portion of Greek yogurt for protein, and a splash of milk to get the right consistency. She was so proud of this routine. She even bought a special high-powered blender specifically for these smoothies. Elizabeth could not understand why her joints were not improving despite all her efforts. Her knees still ached when she walked to the mailbox. She still needed to use the handrail when climbing stairs. She had done everything right, or so she thought, and yet the results she was hoping for never materialized. When I explained the dairy and anthocyanin interaction to her, she was genuinely shocked. Nobody had ever told her this before. Not her doctors, not the health magazines she read, not the online articles she had consulted. She felt like she had been wasting her time and money all those years. I could see the frustration in her eyes as she processed this information. I reassured her that she had still been getting some benefit, just not nearly as much as she could have been. The anthocyanins were still entering her system, just at a significantly reduced rate. We redesigned her morning routine. Instead of mixing blueberries with dairy, she started eating her blueberries separately, about 2 hours away from any dairy consumption. She switched to making her smoothies with almond milk or coconut milk, which do not contain caseins and therefore do not interfere with anthocyanin absorption. The transformation was remarkable. Within 2 months, she told me that getting up from her chair no longer felt like such a monumental effort. Her knees still had arthritis, of course. That does not just disappear, but the daily pain and stiffness had reduced significantly. She described it as finally feeling like the blueberries were actually working. If you enjoy having blueberries with your breakfast, consider pairing them with oatmeal, whole grain toast, or eating them on their own as a mid-morning snack between meals. Plant-based milk alternatives are also excellent options if you want that creamy texture in your smoothies without sacrificing the anti-inflammatory benefits. The fourth mistake is related to quantity, and this one catches a lot of people off guard because they assume that if something is good for you, more must be better. With blueberries and joint health, that logic can actually backfire in an unexpected way. Blueberries contain natural sugars, primarily fructose. While the fiber in blueberries helps slow down the absorption of these sugars compared to processed foods, eating very large quantities of blueberries can still lead to significant spikes in blood sugar levels. An elevated blood sugar is one of the most potent drivers of systemic inflammation in the human body. When your blood sugar rises rapidly, your body produces compounds called advanced glycation end products, which scientists have found accumulate in joint tissues and contribute to cartilage breakdown and increased inflammation. Mr. Raymond Johnson, a 75-year-old retired accountant from Boston, Massachusetts, was a man who believed in going all in on anything he decided to do. Raymond had spent his entire career analyzing numbers, finding patterns, and maximizing efficiency. He approached everything in life with that same analytical mindset, including his health. When he read about the benefits of blueberries for joint health, he did not just add a handful to his diet. He started eating 2 to 3 cups of blueberries every single day, sometimes more. He figured if a little was good, a lot must be even better. After all, they were just berries, not candy. They were natural. They were healthy. What could possibly be wrong with eating more of them? Raymond even started keeping a spreadsheet tracking his blueberry consumption, just as he would have tracked financial data in his professional life. He was proud of his dedication, proud of how consistently he was taking care of his health. But within a few months, something strange happened. His joint pain, which had initially seemed to improve slightly during the first few weeks of his blueberry regimen, started getting worse again. His morning stiffness, which he rated on a scale of 1 to 10, had crept from a 4 back up to a 7. His blood tests also showed that his fasting blood sugar levels had increased from 95 to 112, edging into pre-diabetic territory, even though he had not changed anything else about his diet. His doctor was concerned and considering medication. When I reviewed his case and explained the connection between excessive fructose consumption and inflammation, he was stunned. The look on his face was one of complete disbelief. He had been doing what he thought was the healthiest thing possible, pushing himself to consume more and more of this supposedly miraculous fruit, and it was actually contributing to his problem. His analytical mind had led him astray because he had not accounted for all the variables. We worked together to find the right balance. For most people, especially those over 60 who are eating blueberries specifically for joint health, the optimal amount is between 1/2 cup and 1 cup per day. This quantity provides enough anthocyanins to offer meaningful anti-inflammatory benefits without overloading your system with fructose. Raymond, ever the numbers man, settled on precisely 3/4 of a cup daily, spread across 2 servings of just over 1/3 cup each. He updated his spreadsheet accordingly. Within 6 weeks, his joint pain had improved again, and his blood sugar levels normalized back to 97. His doctor was pleased, and medication was taken off the table. Raymond learned a valuable lesson that day about how even the healthiest foods require moderation and balance. The 5th mistake is perhaps the most frustrating because it involves medications that millions of seniors take every single day, and almost no one warns them about this interaction. Certain common medications can significantly reduce your body's ability to absorb and utilize the anthocyanins in blueberries. The most notable culprits are proton pump inhibitors, which are medications like omeprazole, lansoprazole, and esomeprazole that people take for acid reflux and heartburn. These medications work by reducing stomach acid production, but that same stomach acid plays a crucial role in converting anthocyanins into forms that your intestines can absorb. When you take a proton pump inhibitor, you are essentially creating an environment in your stomach that makes it much harder for your body to extract the beneficial compounds from blueberries. Studies have shown that people taking these medications may absorb up to 60% less of the anthocyanins from the blueberries they eat compared to people not taking these drugs. Mrs. Patricia Anderson, a 70-year-old retired schoolteacher from Denver, Colorado, had been struggling with both acid reflux and severe hip arthritis for years. Patricia had taught 3rd grade for over 4 decades, and all those years of standing at the blackboard, bending to help little ones with their work, and walking up and down rows of desks had worn down the cartilage in her hips. Her primary care doctor had put her on a proton pump inhibitor called omeprazole to manage her reflux, and she had taken it faithfully every morning for nearly 5 years. After learning about the anti-inflammatory benefits of blueberries, Patricia had started eating them daily, adding them to her breakfast routine with the hope of finding some natural relief for her constant hip pain. She was tired of relying solely on pain medications and wanted to give her body the nutritional support it needed to heal itself, or at least to stop getting worse. For months, she saw absolutely no improvement in her hip pain, despite her dedication to eating blueberries consistently. She even increased her intake, thinking maybe she just was not eating enough. Still, nothing. The disappointment was crushing because she had placed so much hope in this natural approach. When she came to see me and I reviewed her medications, the picture became clear. The very medication that was helping her reflux was sabotaging her efforts to reduce joint inflammation through diet. The omeprazole she took every morning was dramatically reducing her stomach acid, and without adequate stomach acid, her body simply could not convert the anthocyanins in blueberries into absorbable forms. She was eating all those berries, but her body was barely benefiting from them. Now, I want to be very clear about something here. I am not telling anyone to stop taking their prescribed medications. That would be irresponsible and potentially dangerous. Medications are prescribed for important reasons, and stopping them without medical guidance can have serious consequences. But what I did with Patricia was work collaboratively with her primary care doctor to explore whether there were alternative approaches to managing her reflux that might not interfere as much with nutrient absorption. In her case, we were able to transition her to a different type of medication called an H2 blocker, famotidine, which reduces stomach acid through a different mechanism and has less impact on anthocyanin absorption. We also implemented some lifestyle modifications for her reflux, including elevating the head of her bed by 6 inches, avoiding eating within 3 hours of bedtime, identifying trigger foods like tomatoes and citrus that worsened her symptoms, and losing a modest amount of weight to reduce abdominal pressure. With these changes, she was able to control her reflux while also finally experiencing the joint benefits from her daily blueberries. Within 4 months, she reported that her hip felt better than it had in years. She could walk to her mailbox and back without wincing. She could sit through her book club meetings without constantly shifting in her chair. The combination of the right medication adjustments and proper blueberry consumption had finally given her body the tools it needed. If you are taking any medications, especially proton pump inhibitors, acid reducers, or even certain blood pressure medications, please talk to your doctor about how these might be affecting your ability to absorb nutrients from the foods you eat. This is especially important if you are trying to use diet as part of your strategy for managing joint pain. The 6th and final mistake is one that involves the time of day when you eat your blueberries, and this is something that even many health professionals are not aware of. Your body's ability to absorb and utilize the anti-inflammatory compounds in blueberries varies significantly depending on the time of day. This is related to your circadian rhythm, the internal clock that regulates countless biological processes in your body. Research has shown that the enzymes responsible for processing anthocyanins are most active during the middle of the day, roughly between 10 in the morning and 2 in the afternoon. Many people eat their blueberries either first thing in the morning with breakfast or late in the evening as a nighttime snack. While you will still get some benefit from eating blueberries at these times, you may be missing out on the maximum anti-inflammatory impact. Eating blueberries during that midday window when your enzymatic activity is at its peak can potentially increase your absorption of anthocyanins by 20 to 30% compared to early morning or late evening consumption. Mr. Charles Henderson, a 77-year-old retired engineer from Seattle, Washington, was a man who loved data and evidence. When he came to see me about his worsening knee arthritis, he had already been eating blueberries consistently for over a year with only modest results. He had tried different amounts, different types, fresh and frozen, but nothing seemed to make a dramatic difference. When I suggested he try shifting his blueberry consumption to midday, he was initially skeptical. It seemed like such a minor change. But being an engineer, he decided to approach it like an experiment. He kept detailed notes on his joint pain levels, stiffness, and mobility for 2 months while eating his blueberries at his usual time in the morning. Then he shifted to eating them as a midday snack, around 11:30 in the morning, and tracked his symptoms for another 2 months. The results surprised even him. His pain scores decreased by nearly 25% when he ate his blueberries during the midday window compared to the morning. His wife noticed that he was walking more easily and complained less about his knees. For a man who loved evidence, this was all the proof he needed. Of course, not everyone has the flexibility to eat blueberries at exactly the optimal time every day. Life gets in the way, schedules vary, and sometimes you just have to eat when you can. The important thing is to be aware of this timing factor and try to shift your consumption toward midday when possible. Even moving from very early morning to mid-morning can make a difference. Now that we have covered all 6 critical mistakes, let me share with you some final thoughts on how to put all of this information together into a practical approach that can actually help your joints. First, eat your blueberries after having some food in your stomach, never on a completely empty stomach first thing in the morning. Let that protective buffer form before introducing the organic acids. Second, choose frozen blueberries or eat fresh ones within 3 to 4 days of purchase to ensure you are getting the maximum anthocyanin content. Do not let them languish in your refrigerator for a week or more. Third, separate your blueberry consumption from dairy products by at least 2 hours. If you want blueberries in your smoothies, use plant-based milk alternatives instead. Fourth, stick to 1/2 cup to 1 cup of blueberries per day. More is not better, and excessive consumption can actually increase inflammation through blood sugar effects. Fifth, if you are taking proton pump inhibitors or other medications that affect nutrient absorption, talk to your doctor about alternatives or about timing your blueberry consumption to minimize interference. Sixth, try to eat your blueberries during the midday window when your body's enzyme activity is highest for processing these beneficial compounds. I want to leave you with a message of hope. Joint pain is not something you simply have to accept as an inevitable part of aging. While we cannot turn back time or reverse every bit of wear and tear that our joints have experienced over the decades, we absolutely can make choices that reduce inflammation, ease pain, and improve our quality of life. Something as simple as changing the way you eat a handful of berries can make a meaningful difference. Every single patient story I shared with you today is a reminder that small changes can lead to significant results. Mrs. Dorothy Campbell regained the ability to enjoy her books. Mr. Harold Washington finally found relief for his knees. Mrs. Elizabeth Martinez started feeling like her efforts were actually working. Mr. Raymond Johnson learned that balance matters more than quantity. Mrs. Patricia Anderson discovered a hidden medication interaction. And Mr. Charles Henderson proved to himself that timing can be everything. Your story is still being written. The changes you make starting today will shape how you feel tomorrow, next week, next month, and in the years to come. Be patient with yourself, be consistent with your efforts, and most importantly, work with your healthcare provider to develop an approach that is right for your individual situation. Thank you so much for watching this video all the way to the end. If you found this information helpful, I would be so grateful if you could give it a thumbs up, share it with someone you care about who might benefit from this knowledge, and leave a comment below telling me what topic you would like me to cover next. Your engagement helps this channel grow and allows me to continue creating content that makes a real difference in people's lives. Until next time, take good care of yourself. And remember that you have more power over your health than you might realize.